Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's edition of SIG Node. It is Tuesday, May 4th, 2021. Let's start with PR review. Sergey, what you got?
Yeah, if you've been not looking into PRs, what's happening? We don't have too many. We have a lot of cherry picks actually merged this past week. And beyond that, there are not too many PRs that have been merged. So we up to date, I think. I mean, vacation up, we -9 from last week. So maybe going forward, you can start burning this number down.
Yeah, I think I saw a lot of things get approved and merged in my GitHub notifications. So I think thanks, Runal, for reviewing.
Sure.
Cherry pick deadline is this Friday, I think. So this is the last release of 118. So if you want something to get backported into 118, it's your last chance. I'll probably go and do a review starting tomorrow or Thursday, depending on KubeCon effective jet lag. Do we want to jump into what's going on with KEPs? I think that I put 4 on the spreadsheet already, but we probably should go through the rest of them. I added to-dos and whatnot. Renal, do you want to lead that? Share your screen?
Sure, just a sec. Great. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So Ilan, do you want to just go through all of them and call out what needs to be done? Which 4 did you have in?
Oh, I think the 4 that I added were the first one, I think, because that's one of those perma beta things that got missed last release. Actually, let me see if I can dig up the link for you. Basically, we have to put everything into the spreadsheet for 122 this time. And let me dig it up. Right now, I put 4 things in that I knew I was going to be working on, but we haven't gone through that as a SIG yet, so.
Elena, could you please share the link to the spreadsheet?
Yeah, I'm trying to dig it up.
Okay. I think it's in the mail somewhere. I just have.
It's in the mail, and it's in. I'm looking in the release repo. Where is the doc? Here we go. Enhancements tracking sheet. And let me also put it in the chat.
That's great. Thank you.
So the ones from Node that are already in there are huge page, medium storage size, support to size memory-backed volumes, configurable grace period for probes, and swap support. So we've got a lot of other stuff I think that we want to make sure that goes in here. Some of it's not targeted for this release, so we can skip that. But I just want to, I can go ahead and add them all to the spreadsheet and set the milestones after this. I just want to make sure that we're all aligned on what's going in. Because almost everything here that I don't have a link for in the to-do column, has, we've got to update the KEP or whatever before the deadline next week and doesn't have a PR open yet.
Yeah, I think a lot of things need to. I guess we can just tag folks that are the primary here as a reminder, and see where we get. At least we have this in a sorted order. So in next week's call, we can see how many are actually going to make it.
Do we want to do like we did last release, where we kind of went through and rated them green, yellow, red?
Yeah, we can do that, but I'm not sure, given the number of items that have no PRs open, if it's worth doing it today. Maybe today we just remind everyone that, hey, the deadline is approaching, and then next week we make a pass at it. It might be more productive.
Yeah, that might be the case. My only worry with that is that next week will be 2 days out from the deadline, including everything must be implementable, PR has to be done, that kind of thing. So, because the KEP Deadline is next week, Thursday, May 13th.
Okay.
Not a lot of time left.
Are we talking about the tracking PR that needs to be there for the
So
KEPs?
for every KEP, there needs to be a few things done. So the metadata for the KEP has to be up to date to target the current release, which means that as part of that, CI will also make you ensure that you do production readiness review if you're targeting a new milestone on the PR. We have to set the milestone on the issue so that the release team can track the KEP, and they have to also be in the spreadsheet. And the release team will ask to ensure that the production readiness review has been done, that there are specific goals for the milestone, and that there are test plans in place for each thing. So yeah, basically I would expect every single one of these KEPs is going to need at least one PR in order to update the milestone and whatnot. So the only one of these that I think is done and ready is that second one, the support to size memory backed volumes, because that was just a matter of bumping it to beta, and the work was basically all done last release. It just slipped.
Yeah, so anything ready here is green. The rest is kind of like red and yellow. Like if we have folks on the call, and like we can quickly do a check on whether it's on track or something. And at this point, I think we can mark those yellow if someone is saying yes, they are working on it or are going to work on it. And then take it from there. Does that sound good?
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Okay, so the first one is huge page storage, medium size, Ed, Ilana. So there is a PR linked here. So yellow for this one? Okay. Okay, so next one is green. Kubelet credential providers. DIMS is on the, are you on the call, DIMS?
Maybe not.
Yeah.
That one, I mean, it was basically all the review was done last release. It just slipped. So, but the author needs to commit to actually doing it. So I'd say it's probably like yellow, just because it slipped because nobody had the time to do it last release. So.
Okay. All right. So next one, Sergey, dynamic.
Yeah,
kubelet.
I started looking into that. So basically, there is no KEP document in a repository because this feature is so old. So I started writing it. It's just taking a little bit more time. So I will send PR this week.
Okay.
Great.
All right. So Sergey, yeah, once you have a PR, can you link it? And I think that goes for everyone. If you link it here, it'll be easy for us to.
And I'll update the status.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And Ilana, maybe two of us can again make a pass later in the week and update based on.
Yeah.
So next one, Windows privileged containers, Mark.
Yeah, so for that one, I think we're pretty much good to go. The KEP was approved for 121 for an alpha implementation. The implementation PR slipped, but that's been open, and there was a couple of small comments that I believe have been driven to resolution on some Slack channel or some Slack conversations around that. So hopefully that'll get merged, anytime soon.
All right, so I'll keep it green then. Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. Just make sure that you update the KEP to target 122 in like the metadata, or else the release team will ask us what is going on.
Yeah, I have a PR open that I put a hold on, waiting for the outcomes of some of these other discussions.
Okay,
but
great.
So I'm going to do that today. Thank you.
All right. So the next one is CRI graduation, and one of the items here was like adding a call to return list of images and that kubelet ignores for GC. And Peter had a comment whether we want a separate KEP. So I'm leaning towards yes. Thoughts, Derek? Or do we somehow fold it into the existing doc or treat it as a separate thing?
I think we can fold it into, my tongue is really annoying. I think we can fold it into the existing.
All right. Okay. Peter, you got it. I'm not sure if Peter is on the call, but I'll talk with Peter and make sure we do that. So I'm going to mark this one as yellow, but I'll work with Peter to get it to green this week. Okay, in place VPA. So when I had an agenda item on this one, and basically he's looking for folks to commit to review.
Yeah, I just took a look at it when I was looking through the agenda, and PRR needs to be done. So I saw there was a PR up for PRR, but there's no approver set, so I just put a comment on that.
Yeah, I will. I'll look to the comment. I just looked at it just now before starting the meeting. I'll update that, and I'll also update the PR. There are two PRs here. One is the PR number 1883 that was merged for CAP. That's the main CAP, and there is a secondary CAP which has got the PR. So these two CAPs essentially define this feature. Both of them go in or not. We're just wondering if there is the reviewers available for this milestone. As far as the state of the code is concerned, I had an implementation for this before, and then we changed directions on the design. So I'm porting making the API changes and porting most of the implementation that I already have. We just need to implement the node local store for handling if the node were to restart, then we need a source of truth. So that is the one piece that needs to be implemented. And I feel that it can be done in 1.2.2, and I would start on it if we have a reviewer bandwidth for this.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. So I'm a little confused about the second CAP. So I know that there's been the one CAP for the in-place VPA that's been approved and just needs PRR. The separate one, I think that's entirely separate, right? So we should be tracking it separately, right?
Yeah.
I don't think it's on here. So
it's the CAP is not on that. But let me just update the document with the CAP link here, because that would be very clear. Give me 1 second. Enhancements. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so that is the CAP. That's the main core implementation. This was the one which went through design review with Tim Hawkin, and we made some changes to the way we were gonna changes to the API essentially, and now I just have to port the old implementation to this new one. So this is what I want to see if we can track for the milestone 1.2.2 milestone. And the CRI change goes along with it. It is either both or neither. So that's not a big deal. The CRI changes are pretty small.
I see.
So do you think this should be green, or we should keep it yellow till we get more?
If we have a reviewer, we can make it green. So updating the PRR is sorry, you were saying?
Yeah. So I know like a couple of people from Red Hat are interested. Like, have you connected with Joel Smith or Chen Wong on this one? They are kind of tracking it, and they may be able to help review test.
Okay, then no, I haven't. Can you please share their email with me so that I can reach out to them? I know there is one other engineer from ByteDance who was looking to help as well. And I'm potentially looking to, I'll do the core implementation, but I would need some help because I got some additional responsibilities in a new role at work. So I cannot be fully on this one.
Okay.
Right. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yep, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, this is Jiaxin. I'm from ByteDance. I'm pretty interested in this feature. And I would like to give any help as I can. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, I think we have enough people. There is one more person from IBM who's also interested in this feature. There are a lot of people waiting for this feature, so I just want to get it done now. It's been a while. So if we can find, I think we can, it sounds like we won't have trouble finding reviewers and even people who can help with implementation unit tests and stuff. So we can call it green. I'll take care of the housekeeping. The PRR sections is mostly housekeeping. It doesn't require detailed design reviews. So I'll get that done today, and I'll send a PR for both this KEP, the in-place API KEP and the CRI KEP. There are two KEPs involved in here.
Okay.
And we can probably review this offline PRR section and then get it merged. So we can call it ready for 122.
Sounds good.
Awesome.
Right. Thanks, Vinay.
And just for anybody, because I got a question, PRR stands for Production Readiness Review, and it is an additional review that needs to be done on every KEP by a separate team from the node reviewers.
Separate from the node reviewers. Okay. So which team would this be?
It's they have a channel in Slack, #prod readiness. And basically, if you fill out the, there's a kep.yaml file, and if you update the latest stage and the latest milestone in there, it'll automatically tell you to assign someone from that team, and it'll fail CI until you add the right file. So.
Okay, and does the review involve detailed knowledge of the design, or is it just
it's from an operational perspective? So the idea would be that the people reviewing it. So I'm on this team.
Okay, good.
But I don't know if I will be the one assigned to do the node reviews. So we'll see.
Well, okay, I can tap you for help though.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, thank you. I'll get this done today.
All right. So on the user namespaces PR, I see a couple more back and forth with Tim Hawken and Michael, but we still haven't identified anyone to take it. So I'm going to mark it red till we get more clarity. Like Don was going to get back and see if there's people from Google who could drive it. So the next one is liveness probe timeout. Ilana, is that green?
Assuming that the KEP updates merge, I think this one should be green.
Okay.
It just needs to be reviewed, but it's pretty straightforward. There's not a lot of changes in the design or anything like that. It's just kind of, this is the next phase.
All right, so this one is not applicable, beta in 123. So we want to skip over it then. The node service log viewer. Mark, do you want to?
Yeah, I can talk about that. So this one is, I believe the current state is that there were a couple of questions from Tim Hawken about usability that were needed to be resolved. They've reached a consensus in the PR comments. The KEP author is going to update those within the next couple of days and get that up. And hopefully we'll get that, the KEP approved for alpha.
Okay.
For 122.
So make it green then, or do you think? Yellow.
In between yellow and green.
Okay. I'll
maybe yellow for now, but
okay.
until.
And Mark, are you submitting all of the SIG Windows KEPs under SIG Windows? Because there's a couple here. Like, basically, does Node need to submit them to the spreadsheet, or have you already done that?
For these two, I've already done that.
Okay, great. Yeah, so that's what I thought, because they were all marked just SIG Windows in the repo. So yeah, good. I think we're good.
Yeah, I think I've added a couple of SIGs to the lists, but yeah, we're driving those. So if there's anything else here, I'll need to make sure that they get added as well. But I don't think so.
Okay, so next one is the pod host name.
Sorry. Can we please go back to the first one? So I'm at Bartosz, and I'm sorry I'm late with this. So can you explain what needs to be done from my side?
There's a PR open, and I think I left you a comment. So hopefully that should be clear.
I just looked at it, but I didn't see your comment. But okay, so if you left it, I will read it. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay, so the FQDN one, this has a KEP update PR. So this needs to merge. And needs a PRR stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna keep it yellow then.
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So on Node graceful shutdown, like David and I met yesterday, and we have a rough plan. Hopefully we'll have something by the end of the week. I'm gonna keep this yellow. actively working on.
So that one, because I think it's staying in beta, right? So we don't have to do anything for the release team for that, I don't think.
Okay, all right. So we do plan to add another another feature flag and do work on that. But okay. So
I think that because it's staying in beta, the phase isn't changing. Therefore, I don't think the release team cares. It's only if it was graduating.
So there is one. Okay, probably can poke Derek on this later. Don't want to force him to talk. So the plan was we'll probably introduce a new feature flag, and I don't know like how that'll work. That'll also have to go through the alpha to beta.
Yeah,
right?
then maybe we do.
Yeah. Okay, I'll keep this yellow. I'll sync with
Sounds
Derek.
good.
Yep. So C groups V2 alpha. So what's happening on the testing side is like Giuseppe has a pull request that is passing all the tests, and like the runc release that includes all the fixes is also like coming out like any day. It's just waiting for one more approval. So I think this is probably a green.
So I couldn't find a KEP for that one. Is there a KEP ready that I just missed? Or?
So KEP was already merged, but that was like pre-PRR and stuff, Ilana. So
I see. Okay.
Yeah, so I think we need to update the KEP to the new format. So maybe I'll keep it yellow for that update. And I'll work with Giuseppe and getting that updated. So memory QoS for C groups V2. David, are you on the call?
Yeah, I'm on the call.
Yeah, so I know there was some more back and forth on it. Do you feel like we've reached an agreement on the direction there, or like probably needs more discussion?
I think so. I think there was a few questions left unanswered that I think needed a little bit more input on. Yeah, so I don't think 100% it's fully closed, honestly.
Okay. Okay, so the next one is memory manager, Artyom, Kevin. Looks like Artyom isn't on the call, so we'll have to.
Yeah, I don't think we have either of them today.
Yeah, we can poke them.
Hey, I'm teammates of Artyom. If there is anything I can do to help with, to get in touch with him, just let me know offline. So
yeah, so I think like we need the KEP update. If there's any changes needed there, can you check and update here?
Yep.
Like,
yeah,
like if the KEP is ready for moving to beta or not. Like.
Okay. Understood. I will check and update this document, I guess.
Yeah,
okay?
add a link to PR as you open PRs.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Francisco. Yeah. Okay. Swap.
I'd say it's probably yellow. I think it's close. Okay. We're kind of hammering out some of the API updates, but I think it's there have been no like world-ending objections right now, so I'm confident, optimistic.
Okay, great. So yellow then, and I think next one, Francesco again. Like Francesco, like what do you do to make progress on this one?
Okay. First of all, summary, yellow. We are totally making progress on the PR side. Kevin is giving comments on the PR. On the KEP, we got few comments, but nothing really big in either direction. So I will need to ask for PRR review, even though I'm not really sure how it look like. I mean, we are adding a new option, so well, we'll see. I will ask for review. Let's see.
All right. Thanks. So next one is Mike Brown.
Hey guys.
Hey Mike. You know what's the KEP status on this one?
All I really need to do is rebase. There was one small fix, the change that somebody wanted to do. Could use some documentation help though.
I put question marks beside that one because it didn't have a phase set. Is this one alpha, Mike? In the milestone column, it says secure by default policy fix, which is not a milestone.
The last time we talked about doing this, we weren't talking about doing it with a switch or anything. It was more of a, this is a bug and we're going to fix it and document it. If that's wrong, then
so if it's going through the KEP process, then it still needs to have like phases or whatever. Would this one be like going direct to GA, or would it be coming in with a feature flag?
I think the way we talked about it was direct to GA.
Okay.
But we could discuss that again in more detail.
So I think, Mike, I think like the question around flag here will be, will this change break surprise existing clusters or not? And if yes, do we need a flag for it? Like I get it. Like I would love to how this turned on by default.
Yeah, let's review it. It should not, but I think I could use a little bit more help on the reviews and stuff.
Okay. Can you add a link to the KEP? Okay. All right.
Yeah, I just dug it up.
Okay.
Thanks, Ella.
So next one, there's a KEP. I'm just gonna open it and see. So I know we discussed it with Akihiro last week. I'm gonna keep it yellow. Derek, let me know if you have objections. So the next one, David, do you want to talk about the current status?
Yeah, for this one, so me and Peter kind of met about this. I think the latest KEP is fully updated on kind of what we discussed. We had kind of like an internal sync. So yeah, I think the KEP is fully up to date, but I think it still needs a few more reviews probably.
Okay.
So yellow for now. Yeah, probably needs reviews from Don, Derek, that type of thing, I'm guessing.
Yep. Right. SecCom by default. So like, I know we, like, so Tim Alker pinged me about this today in relation to the PSP replacement work. So I'll work with Sasha to get it updated and probably see how we can intersect with the PSP.
I just left a comment on that KEP that I think the changes for alpha would be very minimal and very low risk.
Right.
So I'd like to push to try and get that in alpha in 122 and punt a lot of the kind of more complicated details around rollout to the beta discussion if possible.
So Tim, are you able to help review and approve this one?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, awesome. Okay, yeah. So we'll update the KEP and I'll change it to green once we have an update there. Thanks. Okay, so the next one, add timeout for pod lifecycle actions.
This is net new, so it hasn't been previously discussed. And I haven't looked over the PR, but I'd suspect that because this is like a new, relatively large thing, probably anything from here down is going to be at best yellow, probably red.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to keep it red here unless someone is able to provide an update on it.
Is there a summary of what it's referencing?
I think this one might be about changing timeouts because there was like this big PR about being able to like change, like to set like a new grace period and whatnot from this person. So I think that might be part of this. But the cap was like, it's not really done.
So Derek, it says like lifecycle action defaults to timeout of 30 seconds and allow users to modify the timeout. Probably needs more detail.
I was trying to think if it was related to like an API change, like in the pod spec, or if it was related to the plague. By the way, saying plague with half your tongue numb is surprisingly an accurate feeling.
Yeah, I'd say this one probably red.
Yeah, Derek, do you want to find out more about this one, or just mark it red and then revisit later?
Yeah, because PRR is not done. It's not fleshed out. It involves an API change. It involves big kubelet behavior changes. It hasn't been previously discussed. So
yeah, I would say let's make it red.
Docker shim removal, like nothing to do here, just communication transition. So pod overhead, graduate to GA.
I think we're still in collecting feedback for that right now. So there's nothing to do this release.
Oh yeah, I got the data. Yeah, right. I got some data for Sergey, but we need more data. Local storage capacity isolation, FS quota monitoring.
Actually, on that prior question, if it's okay, Tim, since you're joining us today, do you have any usage of pod overhead in the environments you're looking at that you could give feedback on, or?
We do. I would direct you to Eric Ernst, though. That's
okay.
He's in charge of that.
Yeah. Right. Maybe we can tag Eric here and see if we can chime in. Yeah. Right. Okay. So again, back to this one, local storage capacity isolation, FS quota monitoring.
That one I think has been languishing in perma alpha, and I think Paco has volunteered to fix or to graduate it to beta.
Okay.
But there's no PR yet, so.
Yellow then?
I'd say probably, yeah.
Okay.
Yellow at best. I'd say maybe even red, because like I'm not sure what changes need to happen.
I'll just keep it red,
no
and
PR.
then they can change it if there's PR. Yeah.
And the last one I think is actually I'm not sure why it's on the node spreadsheet, because I think it's a networking thing, because it was a change to the dual stack cap.
So is it talking about the host IP's return, the status of a pod to be?
Yeah, let me see if I can find, I didn't link that because it wasn't showing up in the SIG Node PRs, but I think it's tagged as network, yes, which is why it's not there. I don't think that this is something that needs our approval because it's a change to the dual stack cap.
Yeah, so my memory is bad at the moment, but when doing dual stack or single stack stuff before, there were issues on what IPs kubelets advertised and how it read interfaces. But I think for the most part, I would agree that SIG networks should be able to drive that exclusively.
Okay. So we can take it off here then, right? Yeah. But, yeah. All right. Okay, so we'll make another pass at the end of the week and see where we are at, Elena. And then.
Yeah, just looking at the chat, Tim added, I guess, one more KEP to look at, which we hadn't previously been tracking. I added it to the bottom. Tim, can you give us the quick summary of this one?
Yeah, this is basically a feature that we're just gradually deprecating and removing. So there is an action item in 122, which is to default the feature to disabled. And it is a breaking change, technically, but should be safe with the previous changes that went into that. There's more details on the cap itself.
Okay, does that need any, I've not done a deprecation before. Does that need any changes to the cap, or is it just sort of an ACK?
No, the cap is, the deprecation plan was already approved on the cap. And so it's just, I think it was approved around like 118 or something like that. And so this is just kind of following up the 122 actions. So yeah, I'm not sure if this is tracking all of the work that's happening, or if this is just for the cap, then you can probably ignore this.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'll ask the release team what we're supposed to do in terms of multi-release deprecations. Because, like, for example, I would assume that I don't think we're making any changes for Docker shim right now, so I don't think we need to do anything for that. But for this one, since there are changes that we are making, I'll follow up with them.
Yeah, so Tim, if I recall, we started this a while ago, so there were at least release notes where we described what was happening in prior releases. Are you the main? Are you wanting to act as the shepherd for this? I think it was Lantau or myself that tried to work on reviews on this in the past, but I didn't know if you're still able to help out here.
Yeah, I can definitely help out with this. Either make it's a minimal change. I think it's just literally just changing the default value on that feature date.
I think so too.
Cool. Anything else for KEP review, or are you ready to move on?
Go to the next one. I think so. Vinay, do you need anything more, or that got covered as part of your
No, I think it's covered already, so my item can be skipped in this agenda.
Okay, awesome.
Okay. I had one quick thing which I think keeps falling over, which is a developer guide audit request. So we have a bunch of documentation in the community repo, and I believe SIG Contrivex has asked us to look it over and make sure that it's all accurate. So if you're looking for a way to get involved with SIG Node, it would be super helpful to review that documentation, check to make sure it's still accurate, and update it if it's not. So that's all I had for that one. Next item, Jack Francis, discussion about kubelet pod admission during bootstrapping.
Hey everyone, hopefully this will be quick. I am, a little backstory, I've been debugging an issue that relates to the introduction of etcd static pod storage requirements for kubeadm. So when you're doing a kubeadm init or kubeadm join since 120, your etcd spec includes storage requirements, which are sort of sensible. They're very small, sort of like dummy storage requirements, 100 megs, which isn't actually practical for running etcd and doesn't really match with what you would expect to be on a storage volume of a node. But it's a start to just be able to declare to the kubelet runtime that there's a pod running that has critical storage requirements. So what I'm seeing is that in some environments, sometimes in Azure, there's a thread that's linked in the meeting notes. In other environments as well, folks are noticing that ephemeral storage is the requirements are they're not being fulfilled because the kubelet reports that the node allocatable storage requirements for the node allocatable storage is 0. So it seems like it's some kind of a 0 value during kubelet bootstrap. And I just wanted to know if this debugging work that I'm doing collides with some other refactoring work. If it's easy to answer a simple question, should the node allocatable storage ever be 0? That would be, if anybody on here can definitively answer that. Otherwise, I'll work on it offline. but mostly I just wanted to see if anybody else is working in this surface area. So I don't collide with that and I can collaborate with anybody else.
Yeah, Jack. So I'm not aware of any change that would have impacted how ephemeral storage is tracked. I think I don't have to memory where kubeadm is probably host path mounting where that storage is for etcd. But the thing we would need to check is basically if when the kubelet looks at it's what do we call it? It looks at basically wherever varlib kubelet is mounted on.
Right.
Know the disk that it advertises as allocatable, and so if your host path mounting etcd onto a different point, then the kubelet won't know anything about it. So basically, it just comes down to like understanding your disk layout.
Right. Well, the problem is, that's a great tip. The problem is that it's not consistent. And so it seems like a race between the way that kubelet does basically in the predicate admission code flow, if you know what I'm talking about. There's a part where when pods are admitted, they're introspected for, do you meet the declared requirements? So if you've got a storage requirement, it does some math to make sure the declared storage is actually less than the available allocatable storage. And so the particular condition we're coming into sometimes, not all the time, is that the allocatable storage that the node reports is 0. So any pod requirement that declares that is going to fail admission.
So if it's a race type scenario you're describing, we'd have to check if cAdvisor has discovered disk at that time when the kubelet's first reporting allocatable back, and it's possible that whatever set of DU or DF calls that, or I forget the exact chain of calls that cAdvisor is doing, sometimes it might be possible that there's like a second status right, hopefully that's saying what allocatable would be, but it might not be the first. That's the other thing I would look at, because sometimes certain cAdvisor housekeeping loops might only be done like 20 seconds or so after kubelet startup, depending on just what's going on in that host.
Cool.
But to your first question, I'm not aware of any change.
Yeah, that's the main question. I don't want to take up too much time. So I'll work on this kind of as an investigation of a possible bug. And if I find otherwise, and it seems like there's some significant refactor work, then obviously that would be something more like a cat. But so yeah, that's it.
Because this is kubeadm related, I also tagged a SIG cluster lifecycle on there. I mean, it looks
Cool.
like there's SIG cluster lifecycle people on the issue, but those would probably be the other folks that would care about.
Yeah,
this
for sure.
in
That was
case
my
there's
initial
like a kubeadm change.
That was my initial engagement, and they were skeptical that this wasn't a kubelet originating issue, that the idea that ephemeral storage would race with the kubelet node allocatable. Anyway, thank you very much for that. I will certainly continue to engage with them.
Yeah, the only
Awesome.
other thing I'd say, Jack, is ephemeral storage is not as you probably know, as easily enforced as, say, other C group managed things. And so I don't know what the goal is that SIG cluster lifecycle is trying to accomplish, but
I think the goal is to inform the kubelet about sort of system critical resource requirements. So over time, during the life cycle of the cluster, if there is contention across these particular vectors, whether it's CPU, memory, or storage, the kubelet understands that it needs to critically reserve n bytes for storage because it's hosting etcd on this particular control plane node. That's the end goal, I think.
Yeah, okay. Just making sure people are aware that it's not as perfect as one would want, I guess, and maybe priority is another knob that group could explore on, just like letting pod priority try to influence access to resource.
Totally.
Okay, thanks, Jack. Next on the agenda, we've got Tim Allclair with PSP replacement cap.
Hey, I probably should have brought this to SIG Node a lot earlier, but in case you haven't seen it, we're working on a proposal to replace pod security policy with a new mechanism based around the pod security standards that we published a couple of years ago. So PSP is already marked as deprecated and planned for removal in 125, but we're hoping to get this replacement out before then. So if there's any questions on the proposal overall, I can go into more detail. But specifically, the question that I wanted to bring to SIG Node today is how we should handle capabilities in the new proposal. So one of the kind of key tenets of the new, the replacement feature, which is still unnamed, although it sounds like we're leaning towards pod security standards. One of the key core tenets is that it's essentially unconfigurable, that we wanted to give a sort of good kind of default out-of-the-box experience with 3 profile levels, being privileged, which is basically what it sounds like, totally unrestricted, baseline, I'll go into more on baseline in a second, and then restricted, which is sort of our best practices profile. So baseline is basically if you create a pod and only specify the required fields, so that's provide a single container with a name and an image, and don't configure anything else. Baseline is trying to be that level of privilege, essentially. So that pod, by definition, must be allowed in the baseline profile. And things that elevate privilege above that are denied, and things that drop privilege are allowed. Now, it gets a little fuzzy around some things like volumes. We've already kind of gone into a discussion around basically on baseline, we allow all volumes except for host path. And then capabilities is another one that's a bit tricky since we don't actually define the default capability set in Kubernetes. So we had a bit of a discussion on Slack around what to do about this. And I've talked to Runal offline as well. So one option would be to say, just you can't add any capabilities. You can only drop them. And so this kind of, by default, allows the container runtime default set of capabilities by just kind of leaving that the capabilities blank, not adding or removing anything. Or you can remove ones from the default capability set. But the problem with that approach is it breaks the pattern of saying drop all capabilities and add only the ones that I need for kind of an allow list approach, which thanks to several folks from SIG Node, we realized that this actually is a pattern that is used. So we'd like to not break that. So that means that basically our only option is to define a Kubernetes default set of capabilities, essentially, or make it configurable somehow. So the proposal that I just pushed, this is still kind of open to debate, is to basically take the Docker default set and drop capnet raw, because I think that's the most dangerous and the most contentious capability in that default set, and say that anything from that, Docker default minus capnet raw is allowed to be added to the pod explicitly. And so this means that you can still configure at the runtime level, you can still configure an expanded capability set beyond that. So for instance, if you want to use the full Docker default set with CapNet raw, that's still okay. You just can't explicitly add CapNet raw on the pod spec. It also means that if you have a more restricted set of capabilities, then users under the baseline profile will be able to add additional capabilities on top of that in this default set. So that's the current proposal. It's definitely not perfect, so I'd appreciate any feedback on that.
Thanks, Tim. Does anybody have any questions?
No, I think this is a good balance, Tim. Like, it's not perfect, I agree, but maybe like we can take another look at that list and see if there's something else we can drop as well. Like CapNet raw was the obvious one.
Yeah, sounds good. Another thing worth pointing out is that there's a versioning mechanism built into the proposal. So that means if, in a future release, we decide, actually, we've decided that this capability is dangerous and we want to drop this from the set as well, we can do that using the versioning mechanism without worrying about breaking backwards compatibility.
Awesome. Any other questions for Tim? Well, I think that we're basically at the end of our agenda for today. I know Francesco had scheduled maybe a demo if there was time, but we only have 4 minutes left. So
do you mind just a quickest update about the status of the work about CPU manager?
Go ahead.
Yeah, it's very, very quick. The thing which is worth highlight is during the review, Kevin gave a lot of good comments and pointed out that rather than a new policy, he believed it's better to have a new option to fine-tune the behavior of the static policy, which is very similar to what Derek suggested. So we are doing that way. But besides that, the behavior we want to implement is still the same. So just a heads up, we are going to pivoting this way. It will not be a new policy, just a new option to fine-tune the policy. And Kevin said we will maybe able to contribute some features he was using this feature. So that's it. And about the demo, I'm going to record it and share in the document and also on Slack. So we'll see. Thanks.
Great. Any other business?
No, just one more time, everyone, please update your caps and update the doc with links. Thanks.
Update your caps, update the doc. The doc's in the agenda. You know where the agenda is. Great. I'll give everybody 3 minutes back. Thanks so much.